Democrats claiming to defend democracy are adopting the tactics of authoritarian China. They're one and the same. The Democrat Party and the authoritarian Chinese, the CCP, they're one and the same. They're using the same exact tactics. That's why they're trying to bring in this ESG stuff and all this other stuff that we see in China. They're bringing over here to America. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting up new stuff. When you hit that alarm bell, change it from personal to all. That way you get all my messages whenever I put out stuff, because I put out stuff sporadically throughout the day, and sometimes I go live. Also, check out my link tree in the description. There's a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here, and there's also a link to my Instagram where I put out tons of news throughout the day to keep you informed. All right, let's talk about this news. In the name of defending democracy, American Democrats weaponize our government apparatus in an attempt to eliminate a former president. As it turns out, Democrats' desperate tactics to hold power are disturbingly reminiscent of those employed by the authoritarian communists running China. On Saturday, Chinese leader Xi Jinping appeared to make a similar move against his predecessor. It was crazy how he went and grabbed his predecessor. But in a now widely seen footage from the Communist Party Congress, who Jingtao, the former Chinese president and symbol of ideological opposition to Xi, was dragged out of Beijing's Great Hall of the People, who was sitting to the left of President Xi on the last day of the Congress, until a man in a suit and surgical mask pulled him out of his seat and out of the Great Hall, apparently against his will. It was spooky tactic. Um, the Chinese state media are reporting that Hu removal was due to a health complication, but Hu did not appear to be suffering from any kind of medical emergency, and he resisted being pulled out of the Great Hall. Moreover, the Communist Party Congress is a highly rehearsed event, prompting many to suspect the incident was no accident. In televising the physical expulsion of his predecessor, it's possible Xi orchestrated Hu's removal to signal his absolute power over China. Hu is a leader of a political faction within the Chinese Communist Party that supports a freer Chinese economy. The BBC reports that Hu presidency between 2003 and 2013 was, quote, seen as a time of opening up the outside world and increased tolerance of new ideas. Since Xi has taken control, though a consolidation of power and the promotion of Chinese nationalism has taken precedence, while Hu hoped for China to seek global approval and acceptance has fallen by the wayside. Over the years, Xi has been slowly purging anyone linked to Hu's administration or political vision for China. According to the BBC, the quote last remnants of political opposition to Xi were removed from power after economic liberals Li Keqiang and Wang Yang were not reelected to the CCP's Central Committee at the Congress this year. The alarming video depicting Hu's physical removal from the assembly represents a stark contrast between illiberalism and freedom. Upon taking power, elected leaders from free countries with secure elections and stable governments do not persecute their political enemies. Condemning one's predecessor or political opponent to prison or worse, death, is the behavior of dictators in authoritarian regimes and third world banana republics. And the leftists, the American leftists, they're adopting the same exact tactics. We're seeing that now. I mean, look what's going on with just people that's against abortion. We're seeing them getting locked up by the FBI and getting their doors knocked down. It's crazy. If one were to claim the U.S. is different from and better than communist China, how will we know it? Let's compare the facts on this specific sector. During the 2016 election, Democrats and deep state conspired to annihilate the campaign of then candidate Donald Trump. Once Trump was duly elected by the American people, Democrats and the feds, with the help of the corporate media, of course, tried overthrowing his presidency using falsified evidence and illegal tactics. And I've covered that tons of times. And even after Trump lost the 2020 election, Democrats have continued attacking the former president, his supporters, and his advisors. Trump Mar-a-Lago home was raided by the FBI in August, and it appears President Joe Biden was directly involved in launching the FBI's investigation of his predecessor. Democrats also used the events of January 6, 2021 to punish Trump supporters who sincerely questioned the integrity of the 2020 presidential election. Americans who attended the January 6 protests were thrown into solitary confinement. They lost their jobs, had their banking data shared with the feds, and are still in prison today. I mean, it's madness. The House Democrats' official weapon against MAGA country has been the January 6th committee. The committee, through House President um, and its own organizing resolution bylaws, out the window. It refused to follow House deposition rules, lied in subpoenas, and even doctored evidence. It also failed to investigate serious questions about what happened during the Capitol riot, like why Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi delayed deploying the National Guard, why the Capitol Police were half-staffed, or whether the FBI were informants present during the riot. All great questions that we need the answers to. Instead, the committee abused its power to crucify January 6 protesters and Trump advisors such as Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. In an unprecedented prosecution, Bannon was sentenced to 4 months in prison last week for ignoring a subpoena from the January 6th committee, and Navarro heads to trial next month on the same charges. The last January 6th hearing ended with the committee dramatically subpoenaing Trump, which signaled that the apparent finale of the committee hearing is no way means Democrats' crusade against their political adversaries is over. I mean, they're coming for everyone. The nearly decade-long political prosecution of Trump has made the former president something of a symbol for the breakdown in American democracy. But and I use the term democracy lightly because everyone knows we're really a constitutional republic. But we're gonna go with democracy on this for right now, because that's a whole nother video. However, the growing similarities in tactics between U.S. Democrats and the CCP predate Trump. During the Obama administration, Democrats weaponized the IRS to target conservative nonprofits. Through Operation Choke Point, leftists used federal power to target businesses they dislike and like gun sellers. And that's why they're pushing that ESG so much. They want to do the same thing with that with these major corporations. A Democrats' war on dissent. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Indeed, the disintegration of American democracy is bigger than the left's war on Trump. The left is waging an ideological battle against half of the United States. In January, former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who I cannot stand, equated mainstream conservatives to Islamic terrorists and called for their surveillance. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the stuff that's coming out of their mouths. Parents who oppose critical race theory have been dubbed domestic terrorists. Who comes up with this stuff, and how are they getting away with this? And pro-abortion arsonists and Black Lives Matter rioters, they get a pass, while the FBI raids the homes of peaceful pro-life activists. And Democrats have put us on a path to erode American freedoms and make the U.S. a lot more like China. Z appeared to have who physically removed from the Great Halls last weekend. In the American version, Trump's political opponents tried to destroy his campaign, unseat him from office, and thwart any future political aspirations he may have. An American model of the Chinese social credit system is forming as well. That's the ESG. Considering the way innocent Americans have lost their livelihoods, freedom, and even lives for the crime of questioning Democrats' right to power after the 2020 election. In publicly removing Hu, Xi brazenly signaled to the people of China and the world that he is in power and dissent will not be tolerated. Democrats still hide their aims behind lofty, dishonest notions of freedom and democracy, and we know that Xi, China's president, he got our president Joe Biden. He owns him. Z owns Biden. He does ever he says. I mean, he has 3 hour conversations with President Biden. He owns him, and that's why we seeing all the policies that we have right now. The whole thing is a mess. Hopefully, people will wake up to this. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out democrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.